Let's go back live now to the Prime Minister, who's speaking at that childcare centre in Melbourne.
So weren't able to do all of the commitments which are there, were never going to be delivered. And if you go back, many of the commitments were promised way back a decade ago, and nothing had happened. Suburban rail loop is certainly a game changer. It's something that will connect up Victoria around this growing city of Melbourne and make sure that you don't have to go all the way in to then go all the way out as well. From my experience as a former infrastructure minister, the 3 projects along the east coast were all designed, Cross River Rail in Brisbane, a Melbourne Metro here in Melbourne, and in Sydney you needed to address the City Circle loop, were all aimed at increasing the capacity of the rail line. Suburban rail loop will certainly increase the capacity of the entire rail network, and that's why we made that commitment during the election campaign. We will have a very quick review over coming months of the infrastructure program to make sure going forward that what's committed can actually be delivered, and that the dollars are available, the time frame is available, and that we get on with the business of nation building. I say this, that one of the first things that the incoming Liberal government did back in 2013 was to rip $3 billion out of the Melbourne Metro project. It would have been open and done by now. We would have been getting on with other rail projects here in Melbourne if it wasn't for the actions of the Abbott government. But good on the Andrews government for getting on with building so much infrastructure here in Victoria.
Are you expecting some of those projects under review not to, I guess, pass the test, that they won't be built? Or is it just about reprioritising movement?
Well, in some cases, we know that there are examples of projects, road projects, that had a costing of many hundreds of millions of dollars, that had like $50 million or $40 million allocated to it. Now, that's not ever going to proceed on that basis. You either have to find the additional money, and we've found this right around Australia, that was the case. And during a recent by-election, there was a focus on some of those. So it's a matter of getting what the facts actually are. The National Party were good at announcements, they weren't good at building things. And whether it's inland rail, that of course comes to Victoria but doesn't actually go to a port, doesn't go to a port in Brisbane either, doesn't go to a port in Gladstone, they took inland too literally. Like, the whole idea of the Inland Rail project was to improve freight and to improve exports. If it doesn't go to a port, it's pretty hard to see how it works. And that was a cost of $31 billion before you add on the necessary links as well. So we'll do the review. We'll get the review. I don't intend to preempt it. The review will go to Catherine King, the Infrastructure Minister, a proud Victorian who actually understands how you get infrastructure built. And it won't be built with colour-coded spreadsheets either. It'll be built on the basis of need, and also built on the basis of agreement with state and territory governments, which is why we left the funding in the budget to make sure that we continue to be a country, and certainly I'm a Prime Minister who has a record of building infrastructure in this country.
Has the Andrews government or its servants made contact with the federal government requesting that the airport rail project be delayed? Was that an initiative of theirs?
Well, the Andrews government are going to participate and be part of the review. The Andrews government have got on with building infrastructure enormously in this state, often with no support from the federal government. The truth is the Andrews government didn't get its fair share of infrastructure funding from coalition governments over a long period of time, ever since they gutted funding to Victoria by gutting the funding of Melbourne Metro and gutting the funding of a range of other projects. We want to make sure that we get it right, and Catherine King, as the Infrastructure Minister, will deal with specific issues, but I'm very confident that together with the Andrews government we'll actually get outcomes. What we know is that there were a range of projects in the budget that the Andrews government was never approached on. I mean, the worst examples, of course, are these commuter car parks, some of which were put in places where there aren't train stations. Pretty hard to have a commuter car park where there's no train station. But that was the sort of nonsense that we saw from the former government, where if you were in a seat which was a target seat, then somehow you were viewed as more valuable than if it was a nation-building project. And certainly projects like Melbourne Metro will be nation-building. Projects such as Suburban Rail Loop will be as well.